Foundation, or Atena Onlus, supports neurobiology research, and they are involved in basic neurobiology, brain cancer biology. And what the award was for was award of scientific excellence for the discovery of brain stem cells, something that we did almost 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, I was a graduate student. I was completing my PhD at the University of Calgary. And at that time, the brain was thought to be not very plastic. The brain was thought to not generate new brain cells once it was fully developed. And this was referred to as the no new neuron dogma. And the idea was that shortly after you're born, you have all the brain cells you'll ever have. You can lose brain cells, but you can't gain new brain cells. And there was a lot of evidence to support this idea. And so, diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, when people get injuries such as a stroke or a head trauma, and you kill brain cells, these people in general do not get better. And so this was, a lot of correlatory, real human data that the brain is unable to repair itself. And this is very different than many other tissues of our body. So, if you cut yourself, your skin repairs itself. If you bleed, your blood replenishes itself. The brain was thought to be very different. In other words, it didn't repair itself, could not make new brain cells. And this had been basically a dominant theory in neurobiology for the better part of the last century. Tissues like your blood, like your skin, that repair itself, there is a group of cells that are called stem cells, and these stem cells are ultimately responsible for making the new cells that those organs use on a day-to-day basis. And as an example, your blood makes about 1 billion new cells every day. Your skin makes about 1 billion new cells every day. And another place we have stem cells are located in our intestines. Our intestines are making, again, 1 billion new cells every day. The cell that's ultimately responsible for that is referred to as a stem cell. So the brain was thought not to have any stem cells, not to have the ability to repair itself, because it didn't appear to do that in humans at all. And so what we had found is that there are stem cells in the adult brain, and this was, like most discoveries in science, was, came about by more than an accident. It was basically an accident. We weren't looking for stem cells because you wouldn't look for stem cells in the brain, because everyone knew the brain didn't have stem cells. But we were growing cells in tissue culture. We had placed some growth factors, particular types of molecules, on these cells, looking to see if we could enhance the survival of neurons, and we saw a whole bunch of proliferation in our culture dishes. We started investigating why those cells were dividing, and that's when we found that we could isolate a cell from the adult mammalian brain that would divide and make phenomenal numbers of cells. And so, it's one of the early experiments that we did. We started off with one cell from an adult mammalian brain, and we gave it this factor that would cause it to divide, and it would make this little cluster of cells that we referred to as a neurosphere. And we could take that cluster and we could break it up so it would make a whole bunch of more clusters of cells. And we call this passaging the cells, and we could passage these cells in this manner continuously, basically forever. And so in this one series of experiments, we started with one cell. We passaged the progeny of that one cell for a year. Now, we obviously couldn't pass all of the progeny. We had to throw some away because we started, getting more than we could store in our little incubator. But had we been able to save all of the progeny that we would have generated, we would have generated enough brain cells to repopulate every brain on Earth, every human brain on Earth, 1 million times over. Would have generated something on order of something like a number of 10 to the 50th numbers of brain cells. So any cell that has that type of proliferative capacity is a stem cell, and it's not a tumor cell. It doesn't form tumors. It stops dividing, and we can differentiate those cells or turn them into functional brain cells at any point in time. And so where it really happened was, we were looking for molecule X, showing that it was a survival factor for neurons, so we could find a way to keep neurons alive, like after stroke or Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease, but ended up running across the stem cell. And so since that discovery, and I think that prompted other people to work in this area and to look at this, where are these stem cells located? We now know where these stem cells are located. They line the entire ventricular surface of your nervous system. So you have these fluid-filled pockets in your brain. And what lines those are, that's where the stem cells are located. And in particular regions of the brain, those stem cells are dividing and making new brain cells every day. And we know, for instance, in an adult rodent is making tens of thousands of new brain cells every day. And there's been some very recent data that's come out from a group in New Zealand showing in the adult human brain, in those same regions that in a mouse brain that are making new brain cells every day, the human brain is making new brain cells every day. And probably on order of, tens to thousands or hundreds of thousands new brain cells are being generated in the adult human brain. So I think what our discovery did is it opened a door. And the door it opened was to say, look, the brain isn't static, the brain's plastic. When the brain is injured, it's not that there's nothing we can do anymore, because the brain has the capacity to repair itself. Obviously, for some reason, the brain isn't repairing itself, because people do suffer, permanent damage when they get strokes, head injuries. There's diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. When those brain cells die, there still are functional deficits. But it doesn't mean the brain has the capacity to repair itself. And I think that was probably more than anything what that award was for opening that door to being able to say, yes, the brain can repair itself. And, now where we are in the work we do, and other people that study brain stem cells, we're at the stage where we're saying, how can we get those cells to repair